and welcome to our presentation brought to you by the online KU MBA program. Today's presentation in how to lead people in an age of quiet quitting. As we are here today, let's see here. Today here we have two admissions advisors. First off, myself. I'm currently working with the online MBA program. I also am a student in the program. I am really excited to kind of go through this. This is all things that really interest me. Huge into KU everything at this point. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what our guest has to say today. Susan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. Thanks, Jeremiah. Hi, I'm Susan. I'm also an admissions advisor for the online MBA program. I've been in this role for a little bit over a year now. It's been a lot of fun getting to know applicants that I've helped out over the last year, and I'm looking forward to helping many, many more applicants in the future. And then also just want to give you a little bit of background about the University of Kansas School of Business, which has been creating business leaders since 1924. Some U.S. News and World Report rankings that we'd like to share is that we are now number 16 top online MBA program in the country, and then also number 10 top online MBA for veterans. Also, the program has the AACSB accreditation, also an AAU member, which is one of 34 U.S. public institutions in the Association of American Universities. Also, KU School of Business has a vast global network of alumni, over 25,000.
Right. All right. And without further ado, getting into our presentation here, Dr. Boylan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Steve Boylan. You can see a little of the things I've been up with there. I'm also the Director of Graduate Programs for the business school. I reside up in Leavenworth. I have 3 programs that I'm responsible for, which is the hybrid MBA, the Masters of Science in Organizational Leadership, as well as the Masters of Science in Supply Chain Management and Logistics. I teach in a variety of programs because many of our classes overlap. I've been teaching in the online environment since 2000, so I've got a little bit of experience in this, and I enjoy it a great deal. I also teach traditional in-person classes. And as hobbies go, I have horses, chickens, and dogs, so I live out in the country here in Leavenworth. Next slide. Okay, getting a little bit into the class itself. Management 706 is managing people. A lot of people look at this as their an HR related class. It's not your traditional HR class. Many of the students who we've had, the feedback we receive is they were expecting kind of the traditional HR classes that they might get in their own organizations. But you can see that the areas that we focus on right there in the list are a little bit different than what you might see in a lot of other areas. The course is 8 weeks in length. We call them modules 1 through 8. So it is a condensed and accelerated course. So you have to keep up with things, otherwise you can quickly fall behind. Over half of our students that take this class are in the MBA, and it's their initial class. So many cases, this is their first introduction to KU, to the MBA program, or to one of the other 3 programs that this course is good for. Next slide, please. This gives you just a quick overview, a look at what the online learning management system would look like. So this is from the 706. You can see you have various areas you can go to on the far left. As I said, modules 1, it's 8 weeks, which equate to module 1 through 8. Module 0 is not counted as a week. It's there to give some just broad general information, some specifics, a couple of how-tos. As you can see up there, meet the faculty. In a class such as this, many times we have actually 3 faculty members that we divide the class into. The last class had 190 students, so we divided it up into 3 sections. So you can imagine if it was one instructor trying to teach class with 190 students, the grading requirements and everything else would be a little rough. So we've divided it up. And in fact, Jeremiah was in this class, and I'll ask him after we show you the next slide to jump in and tell us a little bit about what he thought about it. If you show the next slide. And as you can see, modules 4 through 8, you can see they're pretty standardized. You have an overview, module at a glance, which kind of gives you a quick look at what's expected. You have specified readings, required readings that you have to do. There's some additional resources that we may point you to for your own interest. In each week of this class, there's a personal inventory assessment, or what we call a PIA. Those are self-help tools, they're assessments, and for those to actually be effective, and we're going to show you one in a little bit, you have to be brutally honest with yourself, and we know that's hard. There is a weekly discussion that occurs with your peers. It is facilitated by the faculty. Typically, there is a prompt that you must answer in order to get credit for it. And it'll be based along the topic of that week. You can see where the topics are right underneath the module number. And then in order to get full contribution credit, you have to provide at least 2 responses to your peers, classmates, during that week. And it's not a typical, yeah, that's great, or I agree, or no, I disagree. You're in a graduate program, we expect that it's going to be a little bit more in depth than that. On your response to your initial and your response to the prompt, we also expect that you're going to do a little bit of research. So we look for a citation from where you pulled your information. You may have an opinion, and that's great. We want to hear it, but you need to dig a little bit deeper to find something that may agree with the direction of thought that you're going. And then, as you can see, there's personal asset inventories. There's a journal. In this class, there's one at week 2, middle, week 4, and then again at the end. Those are reflective journals. You are given a prompt to answer, but then you can take it as far as you wish because it's for you, not necessarily for me or the other instructors. But it does give us some insights into your experiences, what you're thinking, and where you may want to take the discussion as well. And within each of the graded assignments, you do get feedback from each of the instructors. That is your principal instructor. That is a requirement by me as the lead author for this, lead instructor for 706, is that each instructor will provide every student feedback, whether it's in a discussion or whether it's a written assessment. And with that, let me turn it over to Jeremiah to see if you have any comments, reference the learning management system, how you found it, etc.
Yeah, well, and I did also, I neglected to mention before that if anybody has any questions or anything to ask during any of this, feel free to put it in the Q&A feature, which should be at the bottom of your screen. But as far as the learning management system, one of the things that I really enjoyed about, especially for this class, was there was never any questions as to what was left to do for the course, what you had done for the course, and kind of, you know, setting a roadmap, as you can see, going through it. Also, as Dr. Boylan had just mentioned, the feedback was invaluable. So he had mentioned that it was expected of us than just saying I agree to statements that were put in the discussions. We also received way more than I agree as far as feedback from for me, it was from Dr. Boylan. As far as like, he'd obviously gone through and gave a thoughtful response to everything and really took the coursework as seriously as we were. So yeah, it's really just kind of a great way to kind of segment it and kind of push yourself forward. But yeah, for me, it was just the easiest possible way to go through it. Oh, and we do have a question already. Karina, we can, we'll get to those types of questions as far as like admission questions later on.
Okay, so the core competencies. This is what we look for, that you will, or that we aim for. These are the goals that you will take away with you by the time you leave the course. Yes, it's 8 weeks, so it's fast and furious, but we're going to have you look at different approaches, especially in how to motivate, between the text and peer-reviewed readings, articles. You'll have that opportunity to look at different ways, and we also use videos as well, whether they be TED Talks or others that are on topic that can give you alternative views. We use a host of the different tools to understand how there are differences in each of the organizations. The makeup of the class is extremely diverse, both in work experience, education, country of origin, male, female, gender across the board. We've had many in that are already, I would call, in their professional careers, such as legal, medical, engineers, etc. So there is a wealth of experience coming from your peers as well. So when we look at different ways to increase effective management of yourself and in a team, we also look to get your peers, your classmates' views on this, because from what we've seen, just about everyone is a working adult in that regard. So they have experiences, and when you add, the 190 students and the diversity of thought and experience in the workplace, you have a wealth of information. And we're not really looking at it as it's right or wrong experiences. They're experiences to learn from and for others to learn from. We also elevated a little bit up to the strategic level, and bring in legal issues when you're managing groups and teams. With this type of course, you always have to remember, when you're looking at an HR perspective and you're dealing in management leadership, you're dealing with people. So there is a host of variables that can come along and that will come along. And will we get you prepared to handle every situation you could be possibly faced with? No, I wish we could. However, we feel that we can give you a variety of tools, and compiled with your peers' experiences, those just keep adding to the toolbox that you get to keep in the back of your mind as you work through various issues within your own organization, or as you move up within the organization to roles in greater responsibility. And it gets very interesting when we actually have HR professionals that are working in that field now, that are getting into their MBA or one of the other programs, and they inject what some of the current issues that they're facing within their own careers. When we ask you about your organization, we don't necessarily need you to name the organization. We understand that you don't know me or the other instructors. There's a level of trust that has to be built. You got to build a relationship. So if you just say my organization, we are good with that. When you're writing your paper or your journal and we ask you to assess the leadership within your organization, We're not expecting you to name names. I can't tell you how many times I've seen, Mr. J, Ms. J, Mr. Smith, or just XYZ. That's fine. We fully understand that because you don't know where all the material is heading after you submit it to the grade book. So that's okay. And we understand that. And one of the things is where it shows in the bottom, assess the leadership role in HR organizations. It's not just within the HR organizations. We're going to also ask you to assess leadership in general. Next slide, please. This is what one of the PIA's, personal inventory assessments, looks like. This one specifically is a leadership assessment. We adopted it from John Maxwell, who is a leader within that field in leadership development. And as you can see, there's self-reflection questions, A through Y. It's on a Likert scale, 0 to 4, 0 being never, 4 all being always. Now, and then on the right side of the screen, you can see the assessment key tells you, well, if you score this, you're a great leader versus a good leader, emerging leader. Those are norms. Does that mean that that is exactly what it is? No. This gives you a tool to use that you can take with you to also provide to your team to get an idea. You can start getting some maybe indicators of where you feel you are and where your organization or your team feels they are. The problem with many of these types of assessments is you have to be brutally honest with yourself, and that's hard. We realize that. With any psychometric tool or self-assessment, there's always that, well, what are they looking for? What should I be? What does the organization want me to be? We're not interested in that, and neither should you be at this point, especially in an academic setting. We look at this as, again, it's a self tool, and it's only as good as how honest you are with yourself on the results you get. Jeremy took all 8 weeks of them, so I'll let him comment on his thought as far as how useful he thought they were.
Yeah, so this is actually where I felt I grew the most from within the course. Was kind of because the opposite of what Dr. Boylan was just mentioning. I normally look at myself just too hard, but without direction. So what it helped me do is kind of, being somebody who's driven towards, progress, helped give me a direction for some of that progress. So and this is one of the more general ones that we did. Some of the other ones were more, personality related or geared toward setting up plans, like approaching your work-life balance the same way, having goals for your personal life the same way that you would in your professional life. So some of those for me, really helped kind of give me a lot of good direction. So I really felt a lot of growth from these types of PIAs.
These are all provided to you as part of the course, and none of the instructors are there to tell you that you answered this right or wrong. We don't know you. We get to know you a little bit as we go through the course, but these are all there for you to use and take with you and continue to learn from. Next slide. One of the big things we do hit is motivation. What makes an employee motivated to work in your organization or your team? As you can see, there's a couple of key areas: employee engagement, intrinsic motivation, extrinsic, and job redesign. When we look at the topic of quiet quitting, This tends to be the area that the literature and the anecdotally that we hear from students that is occurring in that uh, phenomenon, I guess, if you will, that trend right now in the quiet quitting. Um, Intrinsic motivation, what motivates you internally? Uh, your supervisor, your boss, manager, whomever, hopefully over time they get to know you enough to know what motivates you internally. The company can provide extrinsic motivation, pay raises, bonuses, more paid time off, awards. What we have found is over time, the extrinsic motivation can only take an employee, a member of the organization, so far. You can only pay them so much. If they're miserable at work because of the climate, then they're only going to stay there so long. Bonuses, more salary, more paid time off can be a little bit of a stopgap in that regard, but it's not going to fix the problem. And then job redesign. That will get into when you start looking at duties, responsibilities of the individuals. Is the job that you were hired for, is it still relevant, valid, feasible? At what point do you and your supervisor look at a job redesign, or from the organizational level, at what point do we need to look at redesigning things in order to get the most out of, and with that, the best out of the employees so that they want to be there, that they're doing something that they feel good about, not just punching the 8-hour time clock and they're miserable all day long. You will find, as far as employee retention or talent management, as it's also referred to, that is huge. How do you recruit talent? And then more importantly, once you get them, how do you retain them? And part of that is HR, part of that's the climate of the organization that we end up discussing, which can devolve into what is the culture of the organization. And then those 3-4 areas right there on the screen are all linked in critically into keeping your employees. Next slide, please. We do discuss team leadership, how teams are development. You can see the different categories there. Probably one of the biggest elements, again, linking back to quiet quitting, is there a climate of trust within the organization, a climate of trust between you and your supervisor, your boss, the leadership? Is there an effective reward system in place, which also can impact or is derived based off performance evaluations, and can help with that extrinsic motivation. Those that aren't interested in those, as long as you're getting to what makes them happy internally, what motivates them internally to get after and come to work every day, then the reward system may not be as important to them. The only way to find that out is to build the relationships with the employees. And that is probably job one of a supervisor or a team leadership. Next slide, please. Typical schedule. The course is asynchronous, meaning that it does not meet real time, such as we are here right now. You have a week. Each module consists of a week. You have assignments that are due during that week. Typically, discussion questions are due before the end of the week so that you have time to post your response to the prompt, and your classmates then have time to read it, digest it, and provide hopefully some thoughtful comments back to you or questions. There's papers are what I don't consider to be too long, 2 to 4 pages typically. And then with this class, there are quizzes each week. They are graded by the system, but we also know that there are, no system is perfect. If you find that that didn't make sense, or it seems to contradict the text from where we pull the quiz, then we're happy to adjudicate those on a case-by-case basis, where somebody brings it up and says, hey, that one didn't fit based on this, then we'll go back and give you credit for it. It's not a strictly autonomous set of quizzes or posts that you're gonna get that you're not gonna see. Jeremiah, any comments on how you found the schedule as a working adult?
Yeah, and so I do work. If y'all can't tell, I'm doing it right now. I am very grateful that the schedule is as flexible as it is. It's not something where, like, in my day to day, that if it were something where it were to, if any of the courses in the program were to say, like, hey, you need to log in at X, Y, or Z time, that's not something that would be an option for me. So in this course, especially with, as Dr. Boylan had mentioned, the idea that, like, you're writing papers that have deep thought involved in them, but you're not writing War and Peace. So you are writing, about yourself, about your experiences, about, your thoughts, opinions, that type of thing. So those papers really fill themselves out, and sometimes you find yourself being like, okay, how do I get this to even scale down to that? So for me, the schedule of the course really was it's a good period of time to be able to focus on something that's very important, which, like I said, yourself and your viewpoints as far as kind of organizational structure and that type of thing, as Dr. Boyle had mentioned, HR related things, and your opinions on it. So for me, it all worked perfectly, and I never had any of those problems with the quizzes as far as, like, looking at them and needing to shake my fist or anything like that. And I would totally have been the type to do that. I think Susan can vouch for me on that. But yeah.
Okay, next slide. Thank you. We are readily accessible to the students. There's various ways that you can get in touch with us. Once you're in the program, you'll have a KU email, so you can then, just like any other email system, it has a global, you can contact the instructor straight through KU, email to email. There's a course inbox that you can put a note in there, and the instructors will get it either directly to that inbox, or it will automatically, depending on how they set it up, will forward directly to their email, so they get it. If the instructors provide their phone number, which I do, call or text is another option, especially if there's emergencies. We understand that everyone is working adults, many have families. Some are at the age now where you have older parents, relatives, things happen, life happens. The sooner we know about an issue, if you need some more time because an emergency comes up, as soon as you can, let your instructor know, and by and large, they will work with you to make sure that you get what you need and you get the time needed to complete the assignment. And once we provide you feedback, you'll see that there is a comment section in that area where it's just you and the instructor can have a dialogue back and forth on the assignment or a question that they may ask. Perhaps you didn't delve far enough into something that they were looking for, or based on what you said, you left a question open that an instructor is curious about. They may leave you a comment or a question, and it's up to you whether you feel you want to answer them or not. For the most part, once you get the grade, the extra dialogue is just as if you were in a hallway or in the classroom on break, and the instructor's trying to get a little bit more out of you. It may weigh in the instructor's mind a little bit on grades, but for the most part, it's there just to continue the discussion as if you were in a traditional classroom. Next slide, please. These are what I feel are the keys to success, not only in Management 706, but probably any of the classes, unless an instructor gives you some very specific guidance or instructions. What I learned as I was going through my master's and doctoral work is, have a place to do your work, whether it's at work, if you do it on lunch or you stay late to do it, or at your home. Review the requirements early. Take a look at the syllabus, the requirements, get a schedule set up. For those that might be former military, you might hear it called a battle rhythm, but get your schedule and how you're going to do this each day or during the course of the week. Probably one of the most important things is don't fall behind, because in the 8-week classes, it compounds itself quickly. If you do fall behind, it takes more energy and effort to get caught up and get ahead of the power curve than it does if you can just stay up. As I was talking about earlier, if there's a problem, let the instructor know. You don't have to get into all the nitty-gritty details, but give them enough to where they know what's going on so that they can assist in the areas that they can. This last class had a student who was in a motorcycle accident. They weren't capable of doing all the typing right away. They were recovering a little bit. I worked with the student. I did not consider their assignments late based on what had happened. And once they got them in, I graded them and was as if it was normal. Don't be afraid to ask questions. That's what we're here for. My thinking, and I think most of the instructors feel the same way, no such thing as a stupid question. If you're asking a question, chances are somebody else is asking it of themselves anyway. And if you are going to be late, don't just give up on the assignment. Submit it late. There will be a deduction, but getting some points is better than not getting any points at all towards the overall tally. That can mean a difference between a passing grade and a failing grade at the worst case. Best case is it's a difference between an A and an A minus, or a B plus and a B. Next slide, please. A little bit about adult learning. These courses are not set up as lecture courses. As I talked earlier, you learn from peers. There's an element of experiential learning. So we're going to have you do a little bit of experimentation. You're going to learn things. You're going to try things that you may have not done before. One of those might be journaling. May have tried it in the past, but at least in Management 706, you're going to do it because we're going to grade it, or you take the 0 for the grade, but we're going to force you into some areas that you may not be as comfortable with or have done before, and that's okay. As an adult, you are responsible for your learning. That kind of goes with the idea of the adult learning model. One of the things that tends to catch people a little bit off guard is we're not going to remind you when the assignments are due. Within the learning management system, there are plenty of tools to help you know when assignments are due. There's an assignments link, which will lay them all out. There's the calendar. You can set up alerts. We're going to treat you as adults. So plan out your schedule accordingly. Put reminders to yourself of when you have to get an assignment due, so that you all of a sudden don't find yourself getting caught short. Next slide, please. Okay, this is now turning it over to you folks.
Yeah, and we are going into Q&A here. We have some here that people have asked already. Please, if you have any questions on anything that Dr. Boylan was speaking about, please feel free to ask. Or if you have any questions about the program in general, looking into something from a student's point of view, I'd be happy to answer, or from an advisor's point of view, either Susan or I would be happy to answer that as well. Susan, do you want to help us out by starting off with that top question?
Do you have scholarships, partial or full? Currently, we're not offering any scholarships, but we would be happy to pass along some sites that we know where you can, that are reputable, that are safe to look into to see if there's any external scholarships available.
Thank you. And Bao, it's good to see you. You've gotten a chance to log on. I hope everything's going well. Bao's a student that I've worked with. He asked, are there papers due weekly? Bao, if you're speaking in general from course to course, and I'll let Dr. Boylan cover that question for this course, but and then go into kind of as a whole throughout the program. Dr. Boylan?
Yeah. I'm teaching 3 classes right now, so I got to remember which was which. The papers that are due, I'll look at it. Look, there's a personal inventory assessment due every week, and that encompasses some analysis on your part to respond to the results, if you will, of the assessment. A true paper due each week? No, not in that regard. Like, for example, there's a journal that's due second week, fourth week, and then last week. The reason why it doesn't start the very first week on the journal is so that you get a little bit of time to get into the class. You kind of, you may have, because one of the questions I ask is, what are your expectations for this class? Well, you haven't been in it yet to really know what the class is starting to look like. So did we meet the expectations? Are they different than what you may have been either, thought it was or heard, etc. And then the last journal entry is, okay, so what was broadly speaking, what was your best takeaway? How can you use this in the future, either in your current career or down the road? And then I believe there's 2 individual assignments for this class, if I recall correctly. And then there's the discussion. So it's all written for the most part. You look at it, because it's an online course. You're not submitting a video response for any of the assignments. I hope that answers the question.
Susan, would you like to take the next one?
Sure. And then, so it looks like we have a question about a physical MBA option. Yes, there is an on-campus, version of the MBA program that is more of a full-time schedule. But that is a separate admissions team. We'd be happy to pass along information on how to contact them.
We'd certainly be happy to email that out to you.
And I'll add that there's also a hybrid MBA program, but that's pretty much here at the Leavenworth campus, to where it's a combination online, and then classes are held at either inside Fort Leavenworth or at the hotel that we have a space in.
All right, and Travis is asking, are group projects assignments part of the program? And I can handle this one. As far as for this course, there was no real group coursework. There is discourse between you and other students in the program via message boards, and you get kind of, as Dr. Boylan had mentioned, it is more personal information, so you do kind of get to know your classmates. There are other courses where there is there are group projects rather. The goal of those group projects is to allow collaboration and that type of thing. It's not a focus of the program overall. So with the flexibility of the program, I would not. I think we all have these like viewpoints of group work that we started back in high school, and you're either carrying the team or being carried. The experience that I've had with the group work that I've had in the program so far has been that of collaboration. So if you're looking forward to some group work, I've spoken with students in the program before who have gone as far as to travel across state lines from the north side of Chicago to Texas to meet up with classmates that they just hit it off with. Also had students who just really were doctors well established in their field that were happy to not. It's really more about what you're trying to make out of it from that group coursework, whether looking at doing a great job and doing things, or also looking at establishing a network through the program as well.
I'd want to add just one thing real quick on usually, at least within the MBA program, the group work is trying to mirror to some degree work teams that you would find in most organizations, or project teams that you'll have to do projects or some kind of not an assignment, but you have a deliverable from work, and it's not just you got to work with 2, 3, 10 people to get it across the finish line. So that's what we're trying to also replicate.
Susan, do you want to take this one?
And then let's see. So Rory asks, does the course use Yellow Dig for the online discussions? I don't know if Jeremiah or Dr. Boylan can fill in a little bit about that.
I can't. I'm not really familiar with what Yellow Dig is. As far as learning management for the system, it's a bit of a modified version of Canvas. So the online discussions would happen within your learning management system. So I have had courses where they've encouraged people to, if they would like to record, either a like a real-time, like your thoughts on something. I think most people choose to, collect their thoughts and type it out either way, which is what we did in Dr. Boylan's class. But it would all be within, like I said, it's a version of Canvas with just some kind of, I would say, some quality of life upgrades to it that allow, easier tracking and that type of thing. But yeah, let's see here. When are lectures and materials typically made available to students? What day of the week? Reference to student planning. This is from Travis again. I guess I can cover this one too. Dr. Boylan, why don't you kind of, is it all at the beginning of the class, or do you go like have it sporadically released week to week?
It is up to the instructor, but I think you'll find most instructors will post all the materials right up front when the class becomes available to students. That helps with one planning. There's no problem if you want to get it, because of life events, again, you're all working adults. If you have to work ahead a little bit, that's okay. We understand that. We expect that at times. So at least for all my classes and for the most that are in the programs I have, once they are available to students, you see the whole, you see all the coursework, you have access to all the readings, videos, articles. If there's a text, not all classes have text. Some use just peer-reviewed articles, etc.
That's the experience that I've had being in the courses. I think I've had one course maybe where it didn't all open up at the beginning as far as like being able to access lectures and that type of thing. It's once again, it's made to be flexible. Let's see here. and I can go over this next one as well. As far as will the coursework be, will the material be emailed as here, and I can go back here in the slideshow and kind of demonstrate some of this. So as the way that you would access your coursework, as you can see here, this slide from Dr. Boylan, you can access it through here. Depending on the coursework, different books may or may not be required. Some courses don't require a book or suggest a book. Some courses very much so require a book. There may be a link to it within the coursework. For Dr. Boylan's coursework, I actually ended up getting a month-to-month subscription from the publisher of the book. So I think it ended up being like $10 a month for the subscription for the book. But the your coursework, as far as lectures and everything, you can see over on the side here. You would, or also within the modules themselves, you'd be able to select them, and it would pull up the actual coursework. Or if it was something from your text, some courses have them linked within the course. Some courses don't, as I mentioned, wouldn't have a text, or would just have a lecture that you'd be able to follow along with within the student portal.
When we have videos that are part of the course, you'll see it in usually the readings or additional resources area. It would be a link to go to perhaps a TED Talk that's on the topic to give you some additional information or other views in regards to the topic that we're talking about that week. If there's an article, it usually may be a link to that article, or it might be the article itself. And then the text, how you get the text is up to you. You can get it through the KU library, you can get it through Amazon, you can get it through the publisher. There's all variety of ways to get the text, either hard copy or digitally these days.
Personally, I'm a big fan of the digital. I like having it read itself out loud to me. Lets me know I'm not going through the course alone. Yeah, we will leave the Q&A open here for a bit. I guess, oh, there we go. I was going to ask my own question. This anonymous attendee has saved us. Oh, by saying personal experiences tips are helpful. Awesome. Well, I will kind of double down on that. And I have a question for you, Dr. Boylan. I know, as you mentioned, this is not your first time teaching this course or a course like this. Over the years, especially with like something, I mean, as drastic of a change as pandemic and workplaces shifting, is the advent of quiet quitting kind of the biggest shift in kind of like how people see work and work functions that you've seen in recent years, or is it something else that you would see as being something as a bigger shift as far as like the Great Reset and all that fun stuff?
I think the biggest shift we are seeing, and we're still seeing it, and companies, organizations are still trying to figure out how to deal with it, is the concept of returning to work in a physical location vice the virtual or distributed work environment, working from home. I think based on what a lot of articles that have been coming out and some research and studies that are being conducted, the employees, the members of the organization, tended to like not coming into an office. There are trade-offs, of course, But a lot of the positives that they were seeing from it was the employees were seeing savings costs, if nothing else, in transportation and time. One of the positives that the companies were seeing out of having folks being distributed was they were actually getting more productivity from their employees because one, if people were having a hard time walking away from email or work while they're at home. Not everyone had the ability to have a separate office at home that you could close a door and not go back into it the next morning. What companies have been finding is that, oh, I didn't quite get everything done. It's after dinner. I'll go back and take a look at it. Well, that wasn't happening if you were sitting in an office and you left at 5 or whatever the time frame was and you went home. You didn't bring your laptop home if you had one, et cetera. When you left work, it was done, unless you were in that unique career field that that wasn't an option, that you could just leave work at home. First responders, all those kinds of things, or emergency services. Quiet quitting, I think it hasn't been around long enough yet, I think, for us to know what the trends are. Will it continue? I don't know. I would hope not. Now, the one detriment that we did, or we are seeing from the distributed working from home, was the social interaction, or the limited social interaction that you might have when you all show up into the office building or typical place of work. For some, that's very important. For others, not so important. So again, it goes back to, if you had built a relationship before the pandemics, so to speak, that relationship probably endured over the course of the pandemic. Best we got for right now.
So it's all a work in progress. I know there, and that's one thing that I really liked about actually the text as well. For my courses, is that it has included, like, as I've been going through courses, I've been seeing things about, like, these types of things have shifted during the pandemic, and knowing that, like, these, what's going on right now is being put into, into thought by the authors of our coursework is really helpful, because that way we are not, the learning about, how to help people, in our VCR repair shops or anything like that.
One thing I would like to add for the recording and for whoever's still on, when you went through your undergraduate work, it was, if you were going through the traditional undergraduate program, you were in college for 2 to 4, 4 years, and then you got to maybe put into practice what you learned or what was provided. With this program, the MBA program, or any of the other programs that we have in the business school, especially at the graduate level, as working adults, what our goal is you don't have to wait till you graduate to start putting into practice what's being discussed in class, what you're pulling out of the readings, or questions from the instructors or feedback from the instructors. I can't tell you how many students have come back and said that, oh, this is perfect timing. We have a meeting next week concerning this various topic, and now I feel better prepared or armed to go in with some specifics that I can ask, or I need to research to be able to provide a better product, or I don't know why we're not doing this at work, and they go and ask questions. So it's as immediate turnaround from discussion to put into practice as you want it to be.
Right. And on that note, if we don't have any more Q&As, I will let everybody, if you do want to connect about the program, if you're interested in the program at all, even if it's just to see if it's a good fit for you, which we understand that, different people have different things going on in their lives. If you'd just like to have a conversation about it, to see what the admissions process is. There's no need to have to figure it out for yourself. There's different ways that Susan and I would be able to help you out. So if you want to take a second and write our contact information down, you can see the spring 2023 deadlines at the bottom there. As you, I know December seems forever away, but what Halloween is just coming up, so it's.
Oh yeah, this time of year it's gonna go fast.
Yeah, so getting in touch with us as quickly as possible, or if you're looking into some other semester, also feel free to give us a call. We're here to help. Susan, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, I was just going to add that, yeah, it's always beneficial just to reach out to us with even just a simple question, because the quickest way to get anything answered is just to give us a call, or if you want to email us and set up a time to chat, we'd be happy to do that too.
All right. And with that, I want to take one final chance to say thank you for all of your insights, Dr. Boylan. It's very helpful as far as both, a brief overview of kind of issues in today's management structures, as well as kind of looking at what the coursework that you're teaching is like in different ways that it's benefiting students. So
My pleasure.
Yes,
all
thank you.
Well, and everybody, I'll give you an extra 2 minutes back in your night here. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your night.
Good night.